Once, there was a world that was not too hot and not too cold. It was just right. Then, there came a time when the life it sustained began to notice our lovely planet was changing. And it's not as if we didn't see it coming. As far back as 1896, the Swedish scientist Svante Arrhenius calculated that doubling the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere would melt the Arctic ice. In the 1930s, the American physicist E.O. Hilbert at the Naval Research Laboratory confirmed that result. So far, it was still just theoretical. But then, the English engineer Guy Callender assembled the evidence to show that both the CO2 and the average global temperature were actually increasing.
Even now, man may be unwittingly changing the world's climate through the waste products of his civilization. Due to our release through factories and automobiles every year of more than 6 billion tons of carbon dioxide, which helps air absorb heat from the sun, our atmosphere seems to be getting warmer.
This is bad?
Well, it's been calculated a few degrees rise in the Earth's temperature would melt the polar ice caps.
In 1960, Carl Sagan's PhD thesis included the first calculation of the runaway greenhouse effect on Venus. This was part of a career-long interest in the atmospheres of the planets, including our own. In the original Cosmos series in 1980, Carl Sagan warned,
"We are releasing vast quantities of carbon dioxide, increasing the greenhouse effect. It may not take much to destabilize the Earth's climate, to convert this heaven, our only home in the cosmos, into a kind of hell."
Since Carl spoke those words, we've burdened the atmosphere of our world with an additional 400 billion tons of carbon dioxide. If we don't change our ways, what will the planet be like in our children's future? Based on scientific projections, if we just keep on doing business as usual, our kids are in for a rough ride. Killer heat waves, record droughts, rising sea levels, mass extinction of species. We inherited a bountiful world made possible by a relatively stable climate. Agriculture and civilization flourished for thousands of years. And now, our carelessness and greed put all of that at risk. Oh, most of it ends up in the oceans. All over the world, the oceans are getting warmer. It's most obvious in the Arctic Ocean and the lands that surround it. Okay, so we're losing the summer sea ice in a place where hardly anyone ever goes. What do I care if there's no ice around the North Pole? Ice is the brightest natural surface on the Earth, and open ocean water is the darkest. Ice reflects incoming sunlight back to space. Water absorbs sunlight and gets warmer, which melts even more ice, which exposes still more ocean surface to absorb even more sunlight. This is what we call a positive feedback loop. It's one of many natural mechanisms that magnify any warming caused by CO2 alone. We're at Drew Point, Alaska, on the edge of the Arctic Ocean. When I was born, the shoreline was a mile farther out, and it was breaking off at a rate of about 20 feet per year. Now, it's being eaten away at about 50 feet per year. The Arctic Ocean is warming, and at an increasing rate. So it's ice-free during more of the year. That leaves the shore here more exposed to erosion from storms, which are also getting more powerful. Another effect of climate change. The northern reaches of Alaska, Siberia, and Canada are mostly permafrost, ground that has been frozen year-round for millennia. It contains lots of organic matter, old leaves and roots from plants that grew thousands of years ago. Because the Arctic regions are warming faster than anywhere else on Earth, the permafrost is thawing, and its contents are rotting, just like when you unplug the freezer. The thawing permafrost is releasing carbon dioxide and methane, an even more potent greenhouse gas, into the atmosphere. This is making things even warmer, another example of a positive feedback mechanism. The world's permafrost stores enough carbon to more than double the CO2 in the atmosphere. At the rate we're going, global warming could release most of it by the end of the century. We might be tipping the climate past a point of no return into an unpredictable slide. Okay, the air, the water, and the land are all getting warmer. So global warming is really happening. Once, there was a world. Ours. And that world is now. There are no scientific or technological obstacles to protecting our world and the precious life that it supports. It all depends on what we truly value, and if we can summon the will to act.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering. Thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.